Hey, Rehoboth family, wanted to come to you today and give you an update on ministry and a lot of things happening in our Rehoboth family. This is going to be a little bit of a different update from what we normally try to do on Fridays, because I want to take a few minutes and talk with you about COVID-19 and its impact on ministry and transitions we've made. In particular, talk to you about a reopening date, a target date that we are leaning toward. As most all of you would know, there have been a lot of changes in the last week from a federal level to state level with recommendations and new orders that have been issued by our different government levels. There's nothing that any leader in healthcare or business or government or even in church leadership that does today that is not without some level of criticism. It is hard to do what everyone would want to do or thinks best in these hours. And for that reason, even when I've disagreed with what some of our community or national leaders may have done, I don't know that it's productive to spend a great deal of time sitting and criticizing them. I think it is much better to work toward the best for all of us, and that's what we have certainly tried to do. We are grateful for our leaders, both our mayors and our county leaders. We're grateful for our governor and all of our state leaders and our federal leaders. These are really difficult times. I am personally grateful for our Rehoboth family, of how supportive you've been of our entire church staff and of me. You have been encouraging. You have continued to be faithful in ministry, and that has been just an exciting blessing in these days. Not an unexpected blessing, but it's been an exciting blessing to see your faithfulness in all areas of ministry during this time, even though we're having to do them differently. As you can see, I'm sitting in our sanctuary, and on Sundays, this place is full of life, and if this were before the service, you wouldn't be able to even hear me as if I were standing right here. There'd be so much chatter and life, and people would be connected with one another, and there'd be handshakes and hugs and sharing of life events and all manner of just vibrancy taking place. And yet the reflection that you have behind me, or the representation you have behind me of these empty pews, really has reflected much of the transition that all of us have experienced during these days. I got to tell you, one of the hardest things for me personally during these days has been preaching in our sanctuary to just a few of us that are here to do the services, and we're practicing social distancing like you are. Off camera, you can't see us, but there's masks on, and this place has been sanitized. Even just yesterday, our facilities team finished sanitizing the sanctuary afresh, including every pew, every end cap and armrest on the pews, and everything on the platform. And they've just done such a remarkable job. But nonetheless, I sit here today talking to you from an empty sanctuary. So let me talk to you just transparently. In some ways, I wish I were sitting in your living room or you in mine, and we could have these conversations about what best practices would be for us moving forward and reopening. Obviously, our federal government, our president and his team have given guidance. Our governor and Governor Kemp and our state team has given guidance. Our county leader, CEO Thurman, has given guidance and request, and then obviously healthcare leaders throughout. Our city leadership has continued. Mayor Frank Allman right here in Tucker and other cities around that are represented by our Rehoboth family have given good guidance and helpful guidance. And at the end of the day, though, we have to make decisions within that. They can't make every decision for us. They're not trying to make every decision for us. They're trying to give us the best information, the best guidance that all of us can follow, both individually and also as a church. I have been in calls, video conference calls, where the governor's office and even the governor have been represented in those. I have been in conference calls and video calls with groups of other pastors, community leaders, and have listened widely. Our leadership team, our advisory team has met and discussed and wrestled with these matters. So let me share with you some things that we are thinking of and how we are moving forward. First and foremost, we want to do what is right before the Lord. that demonstrates our love for our neighbors and for our church family. That's part of the reason that before we were ever required to, we voluntarily stopped gathering here for gathered services and gathered ministries for our Sunday morning groups and so forth. And we moved to an online version of those. As we move forward and all of the data that we're hearing from healthcare professionals and government leaders, it continues to change. I'm like you. Sometimes it's really confusing. Sometimes it seems like the cup is half full, and sometimes it seems like the information suggests that the cup's half empty. So it's hard to know with precision exactly where we stand moment to moment. But what we do know is the trajectory is improving. What we do know, as all of us have said all along, is that these days will pass, and we are looking for that. In consultation with our advisory team and in concert with a number of other churches that are wrestling with when is the best place and time to begin allowing and bringing gathered services together, we have set Sunday, May the 17th as a target date, that we would again open the doors and allow for our body to be able to gather together in worship here in this beautiful sanctuary that has served the Lord's purposes for so many years. But let me say, even with that, a number of things that are going to be important for us to continue to dialogue about and to talk about, frankly, to be very transparent about. First of all, we're a church family. We're not a church building. Now, we are very grateful for our facilities. When I walk through these halls, as do the rest of our staff, and you hear the echo of quietness, frankly, it's disturbing right now. And yet, we don't want to rush forward in anything that would be unwise and put us at undue risk. And so as we think about those next steps, we really do want to listen and be careful and hear and heed the good advice that we have from those who have the best information and have the data that we're trying to follow and that guidance. For that reason, we're not opening this Sunday. Now, in the state of Georgia, not everyone understands this or really is fully aware, but churches have never been prevented from gathering for gathered worship services on Sundays through all of this. Yet the governor, I think wisely, has encouraged strongly that churches not have gathered worship services during this immediate season that we have been through. The suggestion has been online services and drive-in services. We've thought about doing drive-in services. We thought about it a bit maybe for Easter Sunday morning and decided that at least for this season that wouldn't best serve our church family. There may be a day in the future, even as we begin to gather again in a limited fashion, that we might still do some type of a drive-in service. There could be some fun with that. But apart from that, we think 4 weeks out, 4 Sundays away, which is what May 17th is, gives us a period, another window to continue to watch what's happening, to see how the trends go so that we have better confirmation of what is best for our church family, and at the same time, begin preparing for that day when our body can begin gathering together. So over these next weeks, we're going to continue to listen, we're going to continue to learn, we're going to continue to watch and evaluate. It is possible that as we get closer to May 17th, that we would say we need to postpone for another week or two. It is possible that we would simply say we think that we're at a place where May the 17th is appropriate for us to take those steps. But even if May the 17th holds, there are a lot of things we've got to do between now and then. And 4 Sundays away gives us, our staff, and we're going to be needing some volunteers as is appropriate with social distancing and mask and hand sanitization and all of the things that everyone else would be practicing. We're practicing them here ourselves among our staff, the very few staff that are here on a regular basis. We're going to need that time to prepare. One of the things we're blessed with in our sanctuary is a lot of pews. I mean, a lot of them. But our pews are very close together, and so where some have suggested that in order to get the 6 feet of spacing that you can simply skip a pew. Well, ours are close enough together to allow, one, for that depth and warmth of church family that we have, but also to allow for as many people to be in our sanctuary as possible. Our pews are really close together, so we're going to have to separate and skip 2 pews between groupings and stagger setting. We're going to have to make sure we have ways for people to come into our sanctuary and to exit our sanctuary that minimize any touch, so doors will be open that they will not have to open. And while we will have a small number of greeters to simply help direct and seat people, there won't be those times where you get to shake your favorite greeter's hands or hug that person that you've not seen in many, many weeks. And we've got to prepare for all of those things and put up new signage. We have to work on matters for our restrooms and how that's appropriate. We know for certain when that May 17th date comes that we'll not have our small groups on Sunday mornings, our wonderful cafe that operates on Sunday mornings, and so much fellowship and vibrancy that happens there. We won't be able to do that. We won't have our student ministries or children's ministry groups on Sunday mornings. We've not made a final decision about whether we would have nursery on that morning. Some churches are choosing to, and others have chosen not to. We're still evaluating. We're looking at what would be best for our church family and for our volunteers and staff in that matter. And we've got plenty of time to make those decisions, which again is one of the reasons that while we could, we are not this Sunday or next Sunday or the next Sunday going to open our doors and encourage anyone to come for a gathered service. Now, I need to be clear and I need to just share transparently, what do we think will happen on May the 17th in gathering here? Do we think our entire Rehoboth family will join with us and it'll be a grand homecoming? My heart so wishes that could be. You, I suspect, share that same desire, but I so desire that we could have such a morning and go to our fellowship hall and enjoy a great meal together, but that's not what May the 17th is going to be. I have no doubt that there will be members of our church family that it would be best, even on the 17th of May, for them not to gather in any kind of a crowd, even with 6 feet of separation between people and those who would wear masks. I suspect as many in our community are having to make the best decisions for them and their family. And let's face it, these have been days where there has been fear among us. This is a disease that's serious and it's deadly. It has not killed everyone. In fact, it's only killed a small number of people. But when we talk about only a small number of people, those are people. Those are people created in the image of God. And it has sickened many, many, many among our midst. So while we don't want to walk in fear, we want to walk in best practices. We want to walk with good knowledge from our public health and our government leaders and our pastors. We also want to acknowledge that each of us are going to have to make decisions about when it is best for each of us to begin to get together. We know that the body life of Rehoboth Family is to be gathered. We know that that's a vital part of who we are, and it's something we relish and enjoy. Those days are coming again where we can do that unhindered and without concern. But even on May the 17th, we won't quite be there. But what we do want to do is to begin that process that those who can, those who desire to, can come and do it in a way that follows all of the guidelines that the CDC and our government leaders are providing and the best information that we have. We are blessed with a beautiful and large sanctuary, and we're going to be able to scatter out from corner to corner and side to side. In some ways, you're going to have to get here really, really early if you are one of those back row seaters, because I suspect those will fill up quickly. And now there's not going to be many of them because we're going to be spread out. But we want to begin that process of walking forward and continuing our online ministries as we have. Those aren't going away. In fact, we've spent a great deal of time this week, and every week we have, frankly, but especially this week, we've spent a lot more time working on some technical issues, just so that we can continue to improve week by week how we are doing that, so that we can enhance the ministry of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And you're going to continue to see those improvements. You're going to continue to see advances in how we do ministry online, not because we think that there's a place where that should take over and our gathered ministries, whether it be our small groups or our worship services, should go away. Quite the contrary. We think that those gathered ministries are vital. We think that there's something that even online, and as wonderful as video chats and online stream services are, and they are beneficial, that they cannot replace the dynamic of the people of God coming together. But we also know that we live in times where, for a season in front of us that doesn't have a particular date on the end of it, it is going to be important to provide those opportunities for our entire family. We also know that we've had a great deal of outreach through our online ministries. I was talking with one of our members yesterday who doesn't on weekends in particular, doesn't live in this community anymore, lives in another community most weekends, and was sharing with me that there are now people in that community who they have encouraged to tune in with us and to join us on Sunday mornings, who wouldn't be attending church regularly anywhere, are now beginning to hear the teachings of God's Word, the singing of wonderful praise and the reading of Scripture, and they're connecting with us. And so we know that this is a resource that can be used for much good for outreach, continuing to call people to follow Jesus Christ, to disciple them, to mature and multiply, and part of that is that gathered body life. So I've tried, and I desire to be as transparently with you as I can. I wish I could tell you, without a doubt, May the 17th, we're going to be opening the doors, and all who desire can come, though we will be scattered out in this place. I can tell you that I can't say for sure that May the 17th is that date. What I can say, it's our target date. And we are going to be working very hard so that everything is ready, and so that if it still makes sense, if it's the right thing to do, that the week before we'll be able to confirm with you and tell you absolutely, May the 17th, the doors will be open, and if you desire to come and worship and sit with us as we are gathering for worship, we would want you to, and we would desire for you to. But we'll continue to keep you updated. We'll continue to watch what takes place. We'll continue to listen carefully, and we'll continue to make those adjustments. But just to repeat a little bit of what I've said, when we do that, for at least the foreseeable future, and we don't know if that's through the end of June or maybe through the end of July, maybe longer. We just don't know at this point. When we do begin gathering to worship here, it will only be for gathered worship. We won't be having our small groups on campus. We won't be having our student ministry on campus on Sunday mornings. We won't be having our children's ministry in its robust fashion on Sunday mornings. We'll make those decisions when it's appropriate, and when it makes sense that we could be able to do that well for the benefit of the children and the students and the adults, and for everybody that's involved in there. And until then, and probably to some degree even beyond then, we're going to continue our small group ministry online as we have. And so many of you have joined in that and relished that and really benefited from that. As I shared in the Update Wednesday, we even had word this week of a person, an adult, who has turned to follow Jesus in connection to one of our Rehoboth women's discipling groups that meets through video during the week. I know for each of us, there have been a lot of changes. Some of our more mature adults have really been isolated heavily during these days. Some have had to leave their primary residence and actually have moved to be with their children, their adult children during these days, to make it easier for families to care for one another and to take care of one another. Our deacons have done a wonderful job of connecting with our body, especially our shut-ins and so forth, and they continue to do that. Our small group ministry leaders, I just have to give such a shout out to our Bible fellowship leaders and our community group leaders and how they have continued to connect with everyone. As many as they're able to, they are working on or having their groups meet through video chats, or they are meeting with conference calls. And we just hear great reports from those that are doing that of what a blessing and what an encouragement that is. We've had several of them grow during this period. So I just so appreciate the ministry they have. I can't say enough about our staff. From our media team, our worship team, our facilities team that is doing deep sterilization, well, not sterilization, but sanitization throughout our building and in key areas. For our preschool area and our children's ministry area, I think we could do a surgery in those areas as deeply and richly as they've sanitized those areas in these recent weeks. Our preschool ministry that we have, the Day Rehoboth Preschool Academy, they have continued to work valiantly during these days, though we've not been able to gather there. They've done a fantastic job of connecting and ministering to those families during this season. We're not ready yet to set a date of when our Rehoboth Preschool Academy will reopen. The director, Dr. Melita Clark, and I had a phone conference yesterday where we talked specifically about those matters, and we're working on that. That team is working on that. I can assure those parents and our community, as soon as it makes sense to open it for the children and for those families and for the staff that work there, that we're going to open those doors and return. But it won't be returned to normal. We know there will be some things that will be different, not for a season, but forever, in the way that preschools will need to operate moving forward. And so we are working on those plans. I hope within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to give some specific dates in there. But again, so much is based on the news that we hear. So Rehoboth family and friends, I want you to know I love you. I miss you. I wish I could just embrace you and be with you. I wish you could be here, and the noise and the chatter and the family life that we hear on Sunday mornings would just reverberate through all of this room. But I am reminded so much that we are a church family. We're not a church building. I was doing some reading about that recently, about the 1918 Spanish flu, and churches in Atlanta and throughout the South, throughout the country, had to close down during those days. They were ordered to close down in most cases and in many places. And they didn't close for days or for weeks. In most cases, they were closed for months, some for more than 3 months. And I read some writings of some who had lived through that, talking about how they felt during that day and how they felt cut off from their church family. See, they didn't have the benefit of what we're doing right now. They didn't have the opportunities to make calls because there wasn't a phone in every home. There wasn't social media. There wasn't live streaming. And people were quarantined and hunkered down in their homes. And so many of them felt cut off and not abandoned, but isolated during those days. And then as things began to improve, and improve they did, just as they are for us, we are improving, but we're not out of this season. Many of them wrote about how they felt when they first began to know that they could come out of their homes and to begin to engage in community, and how cautious many of them felt they needed to be. Some of them talked about how fearful they were. But many of them talked about that even in that season, there came a season where they embraced life fully again, and they were to go forward, never forgetting what the Spanish flu had done in their lives and in their families, in their communities, and in their country. But they embraced life vibrantly again. And they again began gathering fully and robustly in churches, and ministry flourished following those days. We expect those same things to happen. We're just going to be on a slower buildup as that takes place. Know I'm praying for you. Know that I love you. I want to encourage you that if you didn't sign up for Secret Church, it's tonight at 7 o'clock. Normally we would do that over in our auditorium, and it's a great evening of training and equipping. It's intense, but it is wonderful. You've still got time to do that. Not much time, but you've got time. It's at 7 o'clock tonight. You can go to rehoboth.org/Secret Church. You can still register there, and we will get your booklet to you one of two ways. We'll either email you a PDF copy of it, or if you can get it to us in the next couple hours and get registered, we'll make sure that somebody drops that booklet off at your doorstep and you can have that for tonight. It doesn't cost you much. Tonight's training, oh my, it is going to be very appropriate for these days. The title of it is God, Government, and Gospel, and talking about the role of Christianity as it relates to the role of government, and it is going to be powerful. So I encourage you tonight, join us at 7 o'clock. You'll be able to do that from the comfort of your home and stream it on your phone or your tablet, your laptop, or your television. It'll be a great opportunity there. Join us Sunday morning at 10:30 as we worship through our stream service. It's going to be a wonderful service, and you don't want to miss that. I encourage you to invite your friends, and once that service gets started, share that link on your social media. Send text messages with the link at rehoboth.org/live. That is a great way for you to encourage others to connect in. We know many who are doing that. Learned just this past week, one of our Rehoboth family members now has many of their extended family connecting in with us on Sunday morning, and I sure encourage you to do that as well. Rehoboth family, I hope you have a great weekend. I love you in Jesus Christ.